Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back into the podcast. We have Dylan Sadiq on the show today, Rubik's Cube legend and art icon. Welcome to the show, my friend.
It's a pleasure to be here, man.
So first things first, how did you figure out that, you could be the best at doing Rubik's Cube art? How does somebody stumble upon doing that in the way that you do?
Yeah, so I feel as if my story is probably not exactly as what you would guess it would be, but it's purely from my education, man. I studied obviously 4 years at Rutgers University. I studied biomedical engineering, and as an engineer, our job is to be presented a problem, and we have to like design, and come up with the solution, physically create the solution. So that's exactly what I know how to do, and that's what I'm good at. So that's all I've ever done. So during COVID, when I wasn't in the classroom anymore, we had online education. I became really frustrated with this, this idea of being an engineer online, which I feel like doesn't even exist. So what I just did was I started creating some at-home engineering projects to continue my education. I took some of those design processes that we learned in school, and I purely just applied it to something that I cared about at the time, and that was sports. So, I designed some of my favorite sports athletes completely digitally, because I didn't have the cubes at the time. So I created some digital designs. And if you're confident in your designs as an engineer, you have to take the next step of a financial investment. So I purely just, after I was really confident in some of my designs, I bought about 1,000 cubes. Obviously I recorded the process because in this day and age, you have to record everything. Super basic time lapse. I have no content creation history. Posted it up on social media. My first one ever is Luka Doncic of the Dallas Mavericks. Posted it up on social media. And very immediately, I know people use the term like blowing up and going viral and stuff like that. Definitely did not do none of that. I think I had about 6,000 views on that video. But the Dallas Mavericks, somehow, some way, in the grace of God and social media, they saw it, commented, liked, followed, and reposted the video. And I feel like that really helped a lot because the other professional sports teams got to see the video and they started asking me, hey, can you make our guy? Can you do this one? And then obviously the story continues. I started to get better and so on and so forth. But that's how I got started.
I love it. Now, when you make a piece, do you leave it or do you take it down like a domino set?
Yeah. So it's a great question. I actually I usually leave. So this piece behind me is one that I made yesterday for the CFL, which is the Canadian Football League. It's like their MVP. I'll leave this piece up inside of my studio. I'm sitting inside my studio right now. I'll leave it up inside my studio until my next piece. Just so I have, some artwork in my place until the next piece. But then as soon as I make that next piece, I'll just drop it. Like purely just tip the board over and all the cubes will fall and smash over.
Yeah.
And it's a nice little piece of content at the same time as well. But yeah, that's how I take them down. It's just it's a lot faster, a lot cooler if you drop them, and then I'll make the next piece right out of those same cubes.
Who's the person that you're most surprised, with that interacted with your cube art?
Yeah, actually, I would say this is super recent, man. But I recently made a DeMar Hamlin. And I would say that it did very well on social media. I think my video now on TikTok specifically, I posted two versions of the video. One has like 6.7 million. The other one has like 5.
Wow,
Yeah,
that's
man. Hey,
amazing.
yeah, it's first time. I've never even hit 1 million before, and that absolutely skyrockets like 6.7. And then I posted another version, and that one has like 5.7 million. Uh,
Wow.
yeah, man, insane. And so I obviously, real life people are on social media, and you don't really realize that sometimes, but I started getting messages from like people that are saying, hey man, I'm DeMar's family. And we're going through a rough time, and it really means a lot that you did something like this for us. Just like thank you, just generally, like I just want to say like thank you so much, appreciate it. And then that's already mind blowing. His mom even commented on my Facebook at the time. It was absolutely insane. But when DeMar woke up, like within like 2 hours of news break that he's like out of his coma, he DM'd me on Instagram, man. DeMar met DM me like, hey man, this is super dope. Like, thank you.
Whoa.
Yeah, so I think that's gotta be like,
Yeah, it's got to be.
yeah, that's gotta be like top craziest thing ever.
That's insane. Holy crap.
Yeah.
Is there anybody who you'd want to make one for, that they, you would hope that they would request?
I mean, so growing up, I've always been a sports fan. Obviously, you could go big sports figures like Shaq or something like that. Hall of Fame legend. Current players, I'm a huge Luka Doncic fan. My first piece ever was purely just for fun. But if like Luka or the Dallas Mavericks requested of Luka, that's a big time one. We could go into baseball. I was like a big baseball fan growing up. I don't know if you could hear that. I'm sorry, bro.
No, you sound good.
But yeah, I don't. Okay, cool. So yeah, I was a huge baseball fan growing up, and like huge Derek Jeter Yankee fan. That'd be like a super like those like personal
Yeah.
like that'd be awesome. Those are the types of things that would really make my day, man.
I love it. How much does it cost to build one of them in terms
Yeah,
of like the actual cube dollars?
yeah. So I mean, generally speaking, they always say you can't tell too much of your cost, but I definitely so I'll give you some general ballpark areas. So a real genuine Rubik's cube retail price is about like $10 to $15 a cube. I have 560 cubes, so obviously I'm not paying retail because I would be making no money on my pieces. So I get a very nice wholesale price.
That's
Not from the company Rubix. I'm not affiliated with the company Rubik's Cube because basically Rubik's Cube is the band-aid of bandages. They're just the top tier, well-known name. And I'm not using their cubes, which is like
got
normal.
it.
Yeah, so so I get a nice wholesale price, but they're still expensive, man. They run up real quick. And when let's say I sell a piece, I'm still well into the thousands of dollars of cost when I sell a piece.
So sometimes when you make these pieces, the people who you're making them of or for, they actually buy it and
Yeah.
then you glue it down.
Yeah. So this is really interesting, and there's very much intention on everything I do. So my piece is right here, right? I have just this like standard, like I made this little box from Lowe's. Okay, this is not what I frame my artwork in. I work with a professional woods craftsman. He basically makes me a custom shadow box, or if you want to call it a huge picture frame, essentially,
Mhm.
out of like solid, I don't know, maple, mahogany
Right.
wood, like some nice wood. He puts a glass front, and I put the cubes through the back. But my point is I frame my artwork opposed to, I could epoxy it, I could glue it. I don't know, I could probably do a bunch of other things, but I choose not to go to those types of methods purely because I don't want the artwork to be 100% permanent, especially working in sports. And I'll tell you, a quick story, but I worked with the Tennessee Titans and they wanted a piece of Derrick Henry, but they were like, hey man, like I don't want to spend all this money on a piece of artwork. And let's say, looking down the line, God forbid, Derrick Henry gets injured or traded or he's no longer with us or whatever the case may be. What are we supposed to do with this artwork? If I epoxied or glued it, I'd tell you you're out of luck. I don't really know what to tell you. But since my artwork is framed, I have the ability to go back to Nashville. I could take the artwork off the wall and I'll switch it to a new athlete or logo or whatever the case may be. I'll switch it to something else. So the artwork, it is pretty, solid on the wall, permanent, but it has the ability to be changed at any time, in any case scenario.
That is very cool. I can't think of another form of art that you can just manipulate
Revise.
like
Yeah.
that. Yeah,
Hey, I appreciate that.
that's really cool. Has anybody taken you up on that?
No, not yet, man. I haven't been in the game long enough for somebody to want their piece revised.
Mhm.
So, like I have pieces hanging places, but nobody's got traded or injured or bored of their artwork yet. But people, it is a good selling point. People really appreciate it and like that
That's
security that
great.
they're like, you know what, maybe I will take you up on it because if I need it changed, I could change it.
That's cool. Is there anywhere where you'd want this art to hang? A and B, have you thought about doing work with other, toys and things like that?
Yeah, great questions, man. You guys some great questions. In terms of where I'd want it to be, I feel like it pretty goes hand in hand on one of like my favorite athletes or personal like favorite sports teams and stuff like that. I'm a big, like I said, I was a big Yankee fan growing up. If I got one in Yankee Stadium, that's just a different type of like mind blowing experience because I used to go there as a kid growing up.
Mhm.
So then it's just like I didn't even know something like this was even possible. So now going back, obviously the stadium's not too much different from when you're growing up. So going back is like well, this is pretty insane. And in terms of different forms of, you're like speaking into my future here, man. Different forms of mosaics. I'm definitely considering different forms of mosaics very actively, and I'll tell you the reason why. Um, although although I love my Rubik's cubes to death, they are, like we spoke about, they're pretty expensive, man. So I only cater to like very high clientele or professional sports teams or athletes or whatever the case may be. And I have nothing for the general everyday person, which is like pretty frustrating for me because I get tons of messages every day like, "Hey, oh, look, this is my dog right here." I bring
What's
him to
up,
the
dog?
I bring it to the studio with me. But yeah, man, I get tons of messages every day like, "Hey, man, like, do you have something for like, a mom of two kids, like, or something for the everyday person?" And I'm like, "Hey, sorry, unfortunately, you just, hopefully my videos are enough for you." Um, but I'd love to make something that caters to, everyday people, and I have a much more affordable price point that obviously isn't exactly the same, but similar. And I think by next step, and I think I feel comfortable telling you because I think it's going to happen pretty quickly, within the next few months or so. But I think I'm going to start making something in the form of like, um, in the Lego world. I think I might dabble inside of
Oh,
the
nice.
yeah, I think I might dabble inside the Lego mosaic world, and make something similar like that because Lego pieces are a lot cheaper, and I think I might be able to do something where I can replicate my designs in a much smaller Lego form, and it'd be a lot cheaper. Hopefully, I spend less time on it, and people could still enjoy that. Whether I'm the person to build it, or maybe I could just make things so they can build it. You
Yeah.
could build my design or something like that. Um, and then even further down the line, when life's great and I don't worry about money, I'm gonna start just making mosaics out of everything, man. I can make mosaics. I actually made one mosaic, and this isn't really public information, but I don't really care. But so yes, I worked with the New York Mets, and this is a project we've been working on for months and months and months. But I think it's about to complete very very quickly, so I'm not too worried about it. Um, so we had this conversation like, "Hey, can you make mosaics out of anything else?" And I was like, "Hey, anything you give me enough of, I will make a mosaic out of." So they sent me 700 baseballs. I think it's
Oh, sick.
yeah, yeah. I think the exact number is like 660 baseballs, and I hand spray painted each baseball to a different color, and the colors are, obviously I used white, and then I spray painted orange and blue. New York Mets, orange and blue, and I made the New York Mets logo out of like a 7 foot by like 6 foot mosaic of baseballs. Um, I think very quickly that piece will be hung inside City Field. It's like already delivered, and we're working on the details of it. But that's a super exciting piece that I played around with. And my point is I think I'm just gonna start using other things. Like maybe I'll I don't know, use roses or something for a mosaic one day.
Sure.
I could really, yeah, I could grab anything.
That's awesome, man. And yeah, I think starting from a point of Rubik's cubes is cool too, because that's probably the most difficult, I'd imagine. It's so it builds the credibility first, and then you can take that credibility and just make like cool art with it. It's sort of like how for a lot of like the most iconic artists, like take somebody like Picasso, right? All of his early work was super complex, and I mean like super like looks like a photo. And then later in his career, he just started like throwing stuff at the wall. Or even like and this is actually cool and new news. Kid Super, who was the third guest on this podcast, over 100 episodes deep, he was just named the head of the new menswear line at Louis Vuitton. It started with like all this crazy stuff, like really complex, and I'm excited to see what it turns into. But point I'm making is it's starting from the most difficult point is something that I think is cool. How long does it take to make one of the Rubik's cubes ones?
Yeah, man. So this is like my standard size. It's about 4 foot wide, 5.5 feet tall, and that's 560 cubes right there. But I make tons of different types. These are just the ones you see on my social media for the most part. Probably, I wouldn't say the most commissioned type, but there are, like, for example, I make different types. I use, instead of like standard size Rubik's cubes, I use like really these little baby mini ones. And those little mini ones obviously offer the ability to increase the detail in my pieces. So if I filled this frame with mini cubes compared to, larger cubes, I can get about, close to 2,000 cubes in the same dimensions. compared to 560 for the big cubes. And those mini cubes, they could take me, I don't even know. The time varies significantly depending on the design, but I could take anywhere between like 12 and 16 hours to complete one of those pieces, because those little cubes are a pain, man. They're tough to play with, and tough to move. I'm not too used to them. But those pieces come out insane.
Cool. Cool. So if somebody, is not into making art, but wants to know how to complete a Rubik's Cube, what would be your, 10-second advice to that person?
Yeah, I mean, there's tons of advice. I mean, very directly, if you want to learn, man, you go on some YouTube videos, and I actually think I have to start making some tutorials myself. But yeah, you got to just watch tons of YouTube videos of these other kids teaching you how to do it. And there's, it's not as well. I'll tell you this: it's definitely not intuitive at all. You can't just pick up a cube and just figure it out. It's like, I think it's literally impossible. Doesn't matter who you are. There's like step-by-step processes that you have to follow, and there's like these techniques that you have to like master in order to get to each step, like next step. So you got to watch some videos, man. You're not going to figure it out on your own. Go learn from somebody. Hopefully on my account, I'll post some tutorials real soon.
That's pretty valuable advice. I've definitely been that person who's just trying to do it. It's not like with juggling, you can learn how to juggle on your own just by trying and failing. I take it that is not the case here.
Yeah, definitely not, man. Definitely not.
Now in terms of the social media side of things, obviously, the probably the coolest thing about social is the ability to just reach all these, random people and fan bases and communities and teams. What do you feel like you've learned about, building a personal brand around your artwork on social that, could be passed on to other artists?
Yeah, no, I love helping other artists. I try to connect with as many artists to see, and I'm not saying I know exactly what I'm doing, because I try to learn from them as much as they learn from me. But I definitely have learned a lot of things over the process. But the most important thing that I knew from day one is that being a successful artist involves being a successful like entrepreneur. Like, you have to know how to run a business, sell yourself, have a product, and just honestly make sense for someone to buy. And that's, I focused on that so much, to the point where I used to communicate with these professional sports teams very early on, when I was doing things for free. I was just purely just trying to understand, like, what type of people do they want to hire? Like, why do you want me? So I did this for several months, and I've learned a lot of things from these professional sports teams in terms of social media, in terms of in-person performances, in terms of why you would even want to buy something like this. And now that's exactly how I present myself to them. I'm like, hey, if you want to hire me for a social media post, I'm going to be that person. I'm going to create a unique piece of content that nobody's seen before. I'm going to do my best to increase numbers and really, accomplish your goals in a campaign that you might be running. And I'll give you an example. I just worked with the Brooklyn Nets, and in this time that we're speaking right now, all-star voting is super, like, active. Like, everyone's all-star voting, NBA all-star voting, get your all-star votes in. So a lot of the teams are hiring, influencers or artists or whatever the case may be, to post a video to promote their all-star votes. So that's exactly what I did. I made a Kyrie Irving, and tomorrow I'm actually going to be at Barclays Center. I'm going to make a Kevin Durant. But obviously the Brooklyn Nets love their fans, and they're just trying to, have everyone enjoy a piece of artwork. But at the end of the day, there's reason for it, and they want to increase their all-star votes. They want Kevin Durant to be an all-star captain. There's purpose behind it. So when I first speak to the Brooklyn Nets, if I'm like, hey, I think I'm your guy to increase your all-star votes, I'm going to get you the outcome that you want. That's very much a way that you convince these guys to hire you, compared to, other artists that don't know how to pitch themselves in a business mindset. They'd just be like, hey, my artwork is really cool and everyone will love it. I think that's best. So you really, my advice is just, you are a business at the end of the day, even though you're an artist, and you really have to know that and position yourself like that. In terms of social media, you really do have to be a content creator too, and that's something I'm still very actively trying to figure out. Whether it's keeping up with like the trends, or like getting creative with your editing and your cuts and your post of timing, and a bunch of nonsense like that. But
Right.
Yeah, I'm still trying to be a content creator at the end of the day, but as long as you're a businessman, people really do appreciate that. That's one of the most valuable things I've learned, and I would tell other artists.
No, it's definitely true. In the last like 5 or 10 years, I've even seen, if you're not basically active on social as an artist, it's going to be really hard to be successful. Like even older artists that I know, I look up and it's like, oh, they have 1 million followers on Instagram now. That makes sense, I guess. But it's definitely a change of pace since what it used to be, where the way a lot of it used to work was there would be galleries, and then and sure there still are, but it's just so much more direct now for a lot of people. I think guys like Damien Hirst totally changed the game, where he took all of his art direct to auction. And then for like there are different thresholds, like for the super iconic artists, like guys like Warhol and people like that, the way that what it turns into after that point is people are bidding things up just to keep the value of the stuff that they already own at a certain level. And that's like, as a collector, which is what I am, of all sorts of different things, documents, art, SpongeBob, tickets, cards, all books, all sorts of different things. I think it's so interesting, and I'm just curious how social is going to continue to impact the art game, because to me as a collector, I'm looking at artists and people like that, in terms of the same way I look at podcasts. Like I'd rather have you on today than you at your ultimate level of success, because this is so much more inspiring for people 10 years from now. It's like the same, the Kid Super example is good, man. He was just getting going with his he just launched his first sneaker, and he's just going, and now he's the first head of men's since Virgil. Like that it's the growth, fan, is what it's all about. But I think the point that I make, and I know I went in three tangents there, but that artists being able to spot an artist on social media now, in my opinion, is going to determine how that investment in their work will be in the future.
No, definitely.
Excuse me. In terms of clothing, is that something you've ever thought about?
Man, I mean, I'm not too with the fashion. I mean, yeah, as an art, I do consider myself an artist, but I don't know, man. I have like a Rubik's Cube jacket. That's about as crazy as I can get.
That's kind
But
of
maybe,
cool.
yeah, I mean, it's like a little something, but nah, I haven't. I told you, like, when I start spreading like away from my specific Rubik's Cube art, like I said, maybe a little bit into Legos, but then anything further than that, I couldn't even tell you what I'm gonna do. That's just when I have a lot of free time and I could get super creative. Like right now, my creative like time block is probably like only 30 minutes to like an hour a day. And when I have 20 hours a day to be creative, I'm sure that's when things will really run wild.
Cool. Yeah, I think too, just something like that. I think, I don't know how it would look. I'd need to see it, but just putting that art on t-shirts would be kind of cool.
Yeah, you think so?
I do. Like the same way, like this shirt,
Yeah.
for those that are listening, you can't see, but it's a photo of Mona Lisa, like that sort of thing with the cube art. It'd be kind of cool.
All right. Well, maybe I'll test it out because, like I said, I need something for my general audience. Anyone that wants to love and support, maybe that's an alternative.
Yeah, to be honest, I have no idea what the legalities are around like likeness beyond an art, but especially if it's like partnered with somebody, then I'm sure it would be fair game. Or if it's like something you make up, or that sort of thing. Have you ever I know most of it is portraits. Have you ever just made, like, I don't know, a beach with trees and things like that? Is that something you've thought about now?
And I think I've made like about 150 mosaics, and 99% of them are all professional athletes. They're all headshots. I've only ever made like one. I tried to do like a live shot one time. Personally, I don't think it really, like, I made OBJ's like famous one-handed catch, and I personally don't think it was that cool because the detail like the quality of the art just like decreases tremendously when you don't have the entire portrait filled with the composition. So like so like only like half of his body was in the piece and the detail is just not that well. But they're all headshots. They're pretty much all athletes. I'd love to start playing around. I think my next step, I made one thing that was a little bit different. I made Spider-Man one time, which is
That's
pretty
cool.
cool. Yeah, I made Spider-Man. I did a collaboration post with Sony. So they like asked me to make Spider-Man. I was like, oh yeah, definitely. I would love to make Spider-Man. That one came out really
Awesome.
sick. I think a lot of the cartoon characters with the pixel art really fits in well. And I think that's a path I could go down. I definitely very quickly, like probably within the next, month or so, I'll start testing around like different celebrities, whether that's like artists or performers or whatever the case may be, actors, actresses. I think that's a really cool thing that I could try to do. But I love the sports world specifically, and I love to stick with athletes because we have like this super like unified group of people that come together. Whether it's every Sunday or every other night in the NBA, and we join together and root on a specific athlete. So that I think that thing is really what I love, and that goes into like my performances. Like I want. At the end of the day, I want to be the person at the arena building the artwork for all of us that are crazy in love with the athlete rooting someone on. And I feel like I don't know. I feel like it's not as present in other areas, like in the movie scene. With these actors and actresses. I think it makes sense with artists that go perform their music and stuff. But we'll see what happens.
It's true inherently, actors, unless they're famous for being famous, they are not famous for being themselves.
Yeah, yeah,
You
that's a good point.
Whereas at least like artists are performing for crowds, like as themselves, generally speaking. Maybe not guys like Marshmello, but it's close enough. But yeah, it's it. Although I do think, like a Leonardo DiCaprio and people like that, that would bang for sure.
That'd be dope.
I know people would react well to that, but uh, yeah,
I feel
it
like
is.
it's
It
more
is.
like a social. It's more of like a social like push more than in person because I don't know how often do like crowds of Leonardo DiCaprio people like gather. Like maybe they gather pretty frequently. I'm not really sure.
I couldn't tell you. It seems like he's out at the clubs every night, so
Yeah,
maybe it's at those clubs.
maybe that's where I have to.
Yeah, live club art. No, I mean movie premieres, I guess, in theory, but those only come around once every couple of years, I think.
Yeah.
Um, cool, man. Well, I think we talked about a lot of really great stuff. Where can people find the cube art and everything else you're doing?
Yeah, man, I'm on all social media platforms you can imagine at the College Cuber. You can follow me. My main ones are Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Twitter, stuff like that.
Amazing. Well, my dude, we're all rooting for you. We're gonna keep following along the journey. Thank you for doing this, and you're
Pleasure.
welcome back anytime.
Thanks, bro. It's great speaking with you guys.